Welcome. I'd like to tell a tale of two hypothetical families. The first family is the Wilsons, consisting of Wayne and Wendy, age 65 and 63. Wayne and Wendy have two children, William and Whitney, who are now 40 and 37 respectively. William is married to Wanda, and they have two children, Wesley and Wilhelmina, age 12 and 9. Whitney is married to Wilbur, and they have two children, Willow and Weston, age 10 and 7. A pretty typical family, headed by a baby boomer couple, two Generation X children, and four millennial grandchildren, three generations. The second family is the Millers, Mitchell, age 60, and Mary, age 58. They have two children, Maureen and Michael. Maureen, age 28, is married to Melvin, age 43. Michael, age 25, is not married. First, the Wilsons. Wayne runs the family business his father started. It's a construction company that now has 18 employees. His wife, Wendy, works part-time in the family business. Family heritage is very important to the Wilsons. At family gatherings, the children are eager to hear stories about how the business was founded, how hard Wayne's parents worked to get the business going in those early days, and how their commitment was always to their customers, even if it meant working extra hours or sacrificing profits to make good on a promise. Wayne and Wendy are thinking about their future, the future of their children and grandchildren, and the future of their business. They're glad that William enjoys working in the business, and they're grooming him to take over when Wayne retires. As for their personal assets, they've seen an attorney and set up a trust and executed a will. Whitney will be in charge of transferring assets to family members when the time comes. Wayne and Wendy have always been careful and thoughtful with their money, and they've tried to convey these values to their children. The children grew up with a healthy respect for how much work it took to have money to spend. Because of business fluctuations, Wayne and Wendy weren't able to save very much for William and Whitney's college education. So rather than take out student loans, the children went to public universities, and now they're contributing to 529 college saving plans for their own children. Wayne and Wendy set up a retirement plan for their business, and Wayne, Wendy, and William all contribute to it. Whitney also contributes to a retirement plan at their work. Whenever major expenditures are considered, they budget and plan for them. For example, last year, they all took a family vacation to Disney World. In planning for the trip, they sat down as a family and budgeted for it, deciding where to stay and how long to visit based on the budget. The grandchildren get an allowance and are responsible for buying their own treats and toys. They're encouraged to save some of their allowance for things that cost more than 1 week's allowance. This gives them the experience of delaying gratification and planning their expenditures. The Wilson family has causes they care about, both as a family and as individuals. They like to come together as a family and talk about how they can make the world a better place by donating money to good causes. When it comes to generational planning, the Wilsons are a model family. They're connected and cohesive around the larger values that govern behavior, as well as the financial matters that govern decisions around money. The parents, Wayne and Wendy, share their success with the family and are seeing the fruits of their labors play out in the upstanding behavior of their children and grandchildren. As they look ahead to retirement and their later years, they're proud of the way their children and grandchildren are turning out. Now, let's look at the Millers. Here we have a different situation. Mitchell's grandfather made a fortune in oil. His many millions eventually made their way to Mitchell. Unfortunately, Mitchell's brother was cut out of the father's will due to an old grudge, and Mitchell and his brother are no longer speaking. Of course, Mitchell's father isn't around to see the aftermath of this spiteful decision to deny Mitchell's brother his inheritance. Mitchell and his brother used to be close, but not anymore. Because there's always been plenty of money in the family, Mitchell has never had to work. And despite a Harvard education, he's never been motivated to work. He and Mary have an active social life centered around charitable balls. Mitchell and Mary's daughter, Maureen, married Melvin, who's considerably older than she is and has always been somewhat controlling. From the moment they met, he's always seemed a little too interested in her net worth. Michael, age 25, doesn't work, doesn't go to school, and doesn't know what to do with his life. This is not to say all wealthy kids grow up this way, but there's something about growing up wealthy that sometimes destroys ambition. Famous investor Warren Buffett's aware of this. He's always said he wanted to leave his kids enough that they felt they could do anything, but not so much that they could do nothing. And he impressed this upon his kids from an early age so they wouldn't be expecting a big inheritance. The Millers are a sad family, despite or probably because of all their wealth. They never really knew how to make the affluence take a backseat to the growth and development of the children and of the family as a whole. Each person in the family feels disconnected from the others and directionless. Instead of the grandfather's fortune being used to open doors and provide opportunities, it created family discord and suppressed individual ambition. Welcome and thank you for coming. Now, before we go on, I just wanted to stop and take a second to formally introduce myself. My name is Mark Bautis, and I'm the founder and owner of Bautis Financial. If you're here today, it means you've been giving some thought to what will happen as the generations in your family move through life. As the elder generations advance in age and eventually pass on, the younger generations will be picking up the torch. The values and goals that have been established by the family will determine how the younger generations receive and manage their inheritance. I've seen some difficult, unhappy situations where families don't think about these issues. When no generational planning is done, we often see unhappy outcomes like the Millers, which often impact multiple generations. So of course, we don't want that to happen to you and your families. We want you to be as prepared as the Wilsons. I'm excited to talk to you about generational planning. As we saw with the Wilsons, traditional estate planning doesn't really cover everything that needs to be discussed. Your legacy is far more than just tangible assets. It includes values, family history, and proper preparation. All these things are incredibly important. They're what you will transfer to your children, grandchildren, and beyond. But that transfer doesn't happen naturally. We're often hesitant to talk about money and death for a variety of reasons. So let's take a closer look at the barriers to generational planning and how you can overcome them to set up a successful transfer of assets and values to the next generation. The Wilsons and Millers are obviously stereotypical cases illustrating the good and bad effects that financial success can have upon families. Each family is different, and most families would fall somewhere between those two extremes. But there's no denying the one big problem here. It's hard to have the talk. Parents aren't sure how open they should be in discussing their finances and their estate plan with their children, and children aren't sure how to broach the subject of their inheritance with their parents. First, let's look at it from the parent's standpoint. Number one, they may not want to commit to leaving an inheritance at all. You've seen those bumper stickers that say, "I'm spending my children's inheritance." Well, some people will have to spend what they thought might be their children's inheritance. The biggest drain on assets near the end of life is long-term care. If one or both parents have to go into a nursing home or have at-home or around-the-clock care, there may not be anything left to hand down to the children. So a lot of parents are reluctant to set up the expectations of an inheritance because there may not actually be any. Second, some parents are afraid their children will fail to maximize their potential if they're depending on an inheritance. We saw this with the Miller family. The kids knew early on that they'd be coming into a lot of money and to deaden their ambition. It's a legitimate fear. Parents may also feel repercussions of certain estate planning decisions they've made. It's every parent's prerogative to distribute assets however they wish. Maybe one child has chosen to be an artist or a teacher or has a greater financial need than the other children. Maybe they feel for whatever reason that one child doesn't deserve very much of an inheritance. It's possible in cases like this that decisions made in the privacy of their attorney's office would create discord and hurt feelings if they were brought out into the open. It's definitely understandable. What keeps the children from talking about estate planning with their parents? To start, they don't want to think about their parents dying. That's just a subject they'd rather not deal with. Second, they don't want to appear greedy. It's perfectly normal for children to wonder if their parents have done their estate planning. But to broach the subject might make it sound like they're just waiting for their parents to die so they can get their hands on the money. This is not their intent, of course, but they're worried that that's what it will sound like. And finally, adult children are busy with their own lives. They barely have time to go to work, help kids with homework, get dinner on the table, much less find the time for a family meeting to discuss something that hopefully will be far in the future. Of course, the obvious answer to these problems is better communication. However, that's easier said than done. We can help you get started with the process, and we'll talk more about that later. In the meantime, I want to introduce you to a helpful framework for planning, communicating, and executing the smooth transfer of assets and values from one generation to the next. It's called Savvy Generational Planning. Savvy Generational Planning is a 4-step process, and I'll talk about each of these steps in more depth. First, we'll work together to define the family culture. Next, we'll talk about your financial goals for the family as a whole and for individuals within the family. Third, we'll help everyone learn key financial concepts. And finally, we'll help prepare beneficiaries to receive their inheritance so they know what to do when that time comes. Okay, so what does it mean to define your family culture? What does this have to do with financial planning? Well, when you define your family culture, it helps to strengthen everyone's place within the family. It sets important standards that govern overall behavior as well as what you do with your money. This is especially important for children. You're answering the question, what does it mean to be a member of this family? What's important to our family? What values, traditions, and models of behavior do we hold dear? Of our two hypothetical families, the Wilsons and the Millers, you can tell which family has taken the time to define its values, traditions, and models of behavior. The Wilsons are a close-knit group who are all working together for the good of the family. The Millers really don't even think of themselves as a family. They're just a bunch of individuals looking out for themselves. When we meet, we'll give you the tools and worksheets to help you with this part of the process. I think you'll find it a fun exercise to define your family culture and come up with a mission statement that says what you are all about. Here's a list of values you might think about. When we meet, we'll provide a longer list of values and ask you to start whittling down the list to the values your family finds most important. The Wilsons would probably have achievement, dependability, honesty, reliability, and service on their list, among others. Thinking about positive values like this can be fun and inspiring for the whole family, especially the children. Another aspect of your family culture is your traditions. You probably have certain things you do to celebrate holidays and birthdays. Family traditions are great for establishing a sense of identity for each family member. And then there are the models of behavior. Never tell a lie, keep promises, work hard. Some of you may take these for granted, but when you write them down and identify them as part of your family culture, they become ingrained. Each family member is essentially representing the family when they go out into the world. Step 2 is to set family goals. What is it you want to have and do as a family? So let's talk about some typical family goals. Every family wants to make sure their children are supported until they're able to get out on their own. You may take this for granted, but by setting this as a goal, you may be more likely to consider contingency planning. What if the parents died unexpectedly? Who would raise the children? How would they be supported? Consider this a wake-up call for parents of minor children to do their own estate planning so they can name a guardian in case something happens. College education is another goal you may take for granted, but without proper planning, you may find yourself scrambling to pay for it. By the way, when we talk about setting financial goals for the family, we're not at this point addressing how those goals will be met or which family members will be responsible for them. Some grandparents help their grandchildren with college expenses. Others don't. There's no right way to do this. All we're doing here is suggesting some possible goals for your family. Later, when we meet individually, we'll be more specific about the goals themselves and how to go about meeting them. Another major goal for many families is home ownership. Again, we're not addressing the specifics of these goals, just suggesting some goals you might be thinking about for the members of your family. Some parents joke about being the bank of mom and dad, but really, intra-family loans can benefit everyone concerned if they're appropriate and done right. Say you have a budding entrepreneur in the family, a young adult who has an idea for a business and just needs seed capital. Instead of applying at a bank for a small business loan, which is hard to get anyway, why not borrow from the family? It can be set up so that the lender receives an attractive interest rate or equity in the business. This is another way families can help each other financially, as long as you're thoughtful and careful about it. Here's a fun goal that everyone can get behind: family vacations. Whether you choose to take a mini vacation each year or save up for a special vacation every few years, you're bound to make more of your vacations if you set goals and plan for them. The elder generation isn't the only generation that is or hopes to be retired someday. Everyone in the family should be thinking ahead to retirement. This is one of those universal goals that can be addressed in the context of savvy generational planning. There are some goals that are fun to contemplate and work towards. Then there's long-term care. This is one of those goals that every family member needs to think about. As the elder generation grows older and lives longer, they may need help with activities of daily living. This is too big of a burden to leave to your daughters and sons, and it can be very expensive. We can help you address this important goal in a way that is right for your family. Another goal of many families is philanthropy. It can be fun and inspiring for the whole family, including the children, to work together to identify important causes and map out a plan for donating to them. Okay, once you define your family culture and establish your goals, the third step in savvy generational planning is to learn financial concepts. Each family member will have different needs here, but we've seen that in many families, especially where money and finance are not a common topic of conversation, children and young adults grow up not learning very much about financial concepts. We can help you with this. For example, one of the topics we can help young people learn about is budgeting. By having a plan for how they want to spend their money, they'll be less likely to see money slip between the fingers. They'll be more conscious of where their money goes, and a budget will help them allocate some of their income towards saving for future goals, teaching the benefits of delayed gratification. Another topic we can talk about is credit. Every young person needs to learn how to use credit wisely, how to minimize borrowing costs, and how to boost their credit rating. Again, these lessons can be tailored to your individual needs. We'll work with you in whatever way you wish, but we do encourage you to take advantage of our financial expertise to teach your family these important concepts. Here's another one, taxes. This is a big subject. There are all kinds of taxes, some of which you have control over and some you don't. We'll try to help you understand taxes and how you may be able to reduce them. Almost everyone in the family can take advantage of IRAs and retirement plans. We'll show you how much you can contribute to IRAs and other tax advantage plans in order to build assets for retirement. We'll also give you a rundown on the rules for when you can and must take the money out. And we'd love to teach your family about investing, the type of investments, how to understand the risk-reward relationship of the various investments, and how to construct an investment portfolio based on your individual profile. Okay, once we've helped you define your family culture, work with you to set your goals, and educated family members on financial concepts, the last step in savvy generational planning is to prepare the heirs and executors for the actual receipt of their inheritance. We know this won't happen for a long time yet, but we've seen too many cases where family members are completely perplexed when a loved one dies. They don't know what to do first. They don't understand the legalities of transferring assets into beneficiaries' names. They don't know how to withdraw funds from the accounts in a way that saves on taxes and fees. And they don't know how to manage the funds on an ongoing basis. That's what we can help with. We can start preparing heirs now so they'll be ready when the time comes. We'll provide a checklist of what to do first. We can help with the retitling of accounts. We'll show them how to take withdrawals from IRAs and other accounts in a tax-advantaged manner, and we'll show them how to manage their inheritance in a way that will preserve and protect it for the future. This is what savvy generational planning is all about, preserving the legacy of the elder generations for the benefits of children, grandchildren, and even great-grandchildren. Savvy generational planning is not hard. You just have to get started. So let's work together. I mentioned earlier that a main problem with generational planning is communication. So I'd like to suggest a solution. As your financial professional, we can facilitate family meetings and help you start those difficult conversations. By serving as a mediator or moderator, we can help the generations communicate with one another around the hard subjects of money and aging, and the fun subjects of what defines you as a family in your hopes and dreams for the future. This will be a time to help family members learn important financial concepts. The planning work we've done with the elder generation can essentially be handed down to the younger generation in order to maintain continuity and preserve the elder generation's philosophy around managing money. All of this will help prepare the younger generations to receive their inheritance and preserve it for their children and grandchildren. We would start by holding a family meeting attended by the relevant parties. You would decide who to include: yourselves, your children's spouses, perhaps their children. If they're old enough, maybe your parents. If all of you live near each other, it'll be relatively easy to find a place and time to get together. If the family is scattered, I've seen some people tack it onto a family vacation or hold it, during a holiday gathering. And even if that's not possible, you can still do it through Zoom. You can also have consultations with individual family members. For example, if your adult children have their own financial issues they would like help with, you may want to schedule a big meeting together, but also individual meetings separately. And as a financial professional for the whole family, we can work with all of you together and some of you individually as the circumstances warrant. Okay, so here is a link to my website where I offer a free consultation just to discuss whether savvy generational planning and having that family meeting and how it would work for your family. So feel free to go to my website and schedule that meeting. And you're really taking the first step to the savvy generational planning by doing that. Okay, we do also have a learning center where any of our past webinars and future webinars You can see replays of past webinars and register for any future webinars. Our next one is on August 19th, where we're going to talk about retirement income and how to build that paycheck from your assets once you retire to last the rest of your life. So again, I'd like to thank everyone for attending.